we are back. It's our first episode 2026, Jeremiah.
That's right.
Nice.
That's right. Welcome back, everybody. Happy New Year's. Merry Christmas.
New year.
Yeah, we're finally back. Welcome, Bess. How are you doing today, Bess? How are you doing?
I'm good. Obviously we thank God for every day, but as you mentioned, thank God for the new year.
Mm-hmm.
So just glad to be back. We're getting back on the grind. We've had a bit of a break for a bit, but we're getting back into it, and we're
Mm-hmm.
back to very exciting episode. I know we focused on the five pillars of kingship for modern men,
That's right.
and we focused on each of them, and we're actually going to discuss purpose. So, like, what does purpose mean to us? What does purpose mean? Why do we believe it's important for us men to have a purpose? And again, as we've always mentioned, we're not acting as authority figures. We're learning just as much as everyone else is
Mm-hmm.
learning, right? But we're opening the discussion for understanding why it's important for for men to have purpose, to live by purpose, to understand our purpose, and to just lead purposeful lives.
That's
So
right.
obviously,
No, I was saying
yeah,
that's right. That's right.
yeah. Yeah, no. So let's get started. So I guess maybe we can look at when we think of the topic of purpose, Jeremiah. What does that mean to you in your opinion?
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, purpose. It's a loaded question, but at the same time, it's pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
yeah,
Because purpose is very deep, or should be very deep and meaningful to the individual. Um,
yeah,
but it's also quote unquote simple or I guess rather the concept of purpose is simple. Purpose is, at least to me, what that means is, I mean, I can look at it in a couple ways. Like, why am I here? Or what am I meant
yeah,
to do? What am I meant to
yeah.
produce? What is inside of me that I can pour out into the world?
Right.
How can I make a difference or an impact?
Mhm.
That's how I see purpose. Now, of
Yeah.
course, there are people that can approach purpose in a healthy way, or
Mhm.
approach purpose in a negative way. Um,
Right.
if I were to just talk about purpose in a general setting, anyone could define purpose, or anyone could kind of, yeah, anyone could define purpose. But the way I
Yeah.
see purpose, or rather, yeah, I guess the way I see purpose is, why was I put on Earth? And
Yeah.
to be honest, the only person who has that answer is God. Now, that being
Mhm.
said, I do think there is a way that you can find your purpose, which we'll talk more about in detail a little bit later. And that could be
Yeah.
like, through your, through what are you passionate about, or what are
Mhm.
some things that really speak to you, or something that like you really hate, or I guess
Yeah.
not gonna say hate, but like something that you dislike, amongst
Yeah.
the world that you would like to kind of address. Um,
Yeah.
so that's how I see purpose. But how would you see purpose best?
No, I think you're pretty spot on. Like, obviously, it's not an easy question to answer, but I think purpose encompasses a lot of aspects to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I think for me, when I see purpose, I see, like, what's your reason? Like, your reason, right? I think some people, they call it your North Star. What is that thing that, wakes you up in the morning?
Yeah.
What's the reason why you're doing what you're doing, or you're living life, or what is your why? I like to say, right? What's your why? I know. I believe this is. I read. Japanese. I think Japanese culture, or Chinese culture. I believe. I think I want to say Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Ikigai. Have you heard of that? Ikigai.
Ikigai. It sounds like a
Yeah.
Japanese thing for sure, but
Yes.
I could be
Yes.
wrong though.
Japanese.
I
Yes.
could be wrong for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I apologize if I'm wrong, but if someone in the comment could correct me on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ikigai, where it's like what's your purpose? What's your why?
Yeah.
What wakes you up in the morning? You know, it could be, as you said, Jeremiah. I think it could be a lot of things. It could be your passion. It could be something that excites you, something that angers you, right? Let's say you're angry about the injustices of the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you want to address that, right? That's something that can fuel you. Sometimes it can be what you're good at, right? It might not be always what you're good at, because sometimes you can be good at something, you might not necessarily have an interest for it,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be something that you're good at, right? Or something what you're aspiring to do. right? So
Yeah.
what is it that you're aspiring to do? Who is the person that you want to be, right? Where do you see? And you hear this question a lot in like job interviews and stuff like that. But like, what do you want to be in the next 5 years, 10 years? And I don't mean from like a job interview aspect, but like, who is the person that you're striving to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what action steps you have to take today to become that person,
Yeah, and even like
right? Yeah.
even like as we're growing up, like as kids, like people ask you like, what do you want to be when, or what do you want to do when you grow up? You know, in a
Hmm.
sense, that's even kind of asking like, in a sense, it's kind of asking like, what is your purpose? Because I guess the reason why I
True.
think about this, because like as a kid, someone asks you like, what do you want to be when you grow up, or what do you want to do when you grow up? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
like the career that I want to have should be kind of like this, and this is what I am meant to do, or this is the path that I want to choose, a path that is before me that I want to take. So
Mm.
yeah, I even like asking that question of, what do you want to be when you grow up. In a way, you could interpret that as like, what do you want your purpose to be? But even considering the topic of purpose, like I think there's three ways, like three different ways you can define your own purpose, or rather, maybe phrase that.
Mm.
There's like three different, or at least I think there's three different ways that we can define a purpose for somebody. And
Mm.
the three different ways is like, one, you could, um, because God has a purpose for each person. So the
Yeah.
first way is you could align yourself with the purpose of God. The second way that you can define your own purpose is you can define your, or rather the second purpose is that you can define your own purpose, like what do
Yeah.
you want to do, where do you want to be, or I guess what kind of impact do you want to make. And then
Yeah.
the third one would be you allow, quote unquote, the world to define your purpose. And what I mean by that is more so of like,
Mm.
as you go through life, you have your interests, you have your passions, you have your things that stir something within your soul for like in a righteous kind of type of sense, or just some kind of injustice, as best mentioned, that
Yeah.
could define what you want to do moving forward.
Mm.
Obviously, as like using like the background, using the word of God. Ideally, one's purpose should align with the purpose that God has defined for that individual. But also want to hear like your opinion and your takes best on just the
Yeah.
different, at least the three different types of purposes that I mentioned here. Like, how do you interpret each one, and what are your opinions and thoughts on each one as well?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest. You might have to remind me each of the purposes again.
Yeah,
So I
no,
think the
mhm.
first one you said was so say it again.
Yeah. So the first one is allowing God, aligning yourself to, or sorry, aligning yourself with the purpose God has given you. The second one is
Okay.
defining your own purpose, like I want to do this, and the third one is you're just kind of going through life. There are things that you like, there are things that you dislike, and that thing mold happens to mold your purpose. So it's like
Mm.
God purpose, your own purpose, and then external factors that quote unquote determine your
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't, and this is my opinion. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think there are different ways we can look at it, right? I think I would argue, I don't know if they are always mutually exclusive per se,
Mm-hmm.
because you could make the argument that they all can be intertwined to some capacity,
I agree.
right? Where I think ultimately, like in God's purpose, right, is like giving him glory and honor and spreading his gospel, right?
Yeah.
I think there could be another aspect of it where we have certain things that we're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
certain things that we're passionate about, certain things that we're good at, right? Some people it's like they're good at something, but like it's not, it doesn't always come as natural. But some people like naturally they're just good at it,
Yeah.
you know? And then there's other things where it's like you like certain things, you dislike certain things, and over time it shapes you, right? Like it's certain things you have to just cultivate,
Yeah.
right? To cultivate, So yeah, so I think how I look for me personally, I would argue that all of them can actually they don't necessarily be mutually exclusive in the sense that I think even like the things that we're interested in, things that we're passionate about, I believe those are things that God instilled in us for a reason. Even things that we dislike or
Mm-hmm.
we can't stand, right? One of the things that I read, there was a book I read, The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. Shout out to Rick Warren.
Yeah.
Great book, highly recommended. To anyone who's looking for books on purpose, highly recommend to give that a read. I know he speaks about it in it was that book, and I think there was like a spin-off book, I believe he helped the author as well. And I think one of the things I recall, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, is our experiences, right? And that's just maybe our experiences, whether good or bad, right? Certain things we might have gone through, certain things we might have struggled with in life,
Mm-hmm.
certain aspects we might have faced, and how that could even shape us to who we are in the future, how that can even shape us understanding our purpose,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That could shape understand our purpose, right? So like yeah, it's interesting, right? Like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like even just
Yeah.
my own personal life. Like I would say, I mean, I guess I want to preface what I want to preface something first. Not
Mhm.
knowing your purpose
Yeah.
yet is, in my opinion, completely fine. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
the reason why I
Absolutely.
say that's because I mean, even like growing up, like I wasn't really thinking about like I was thinking about purpose specifically. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
what do I
yeah.
want to do? What things I want to explore? What things I want to try? So forth and so on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
Mhm.
until much later in life, which is like I would say the last couple of years, being put in a position where I'm like, I don't like I don't like this position that I'm in.
Mm.
I don't
Yeah,
like what I'm doing right now. I actually hate what I'm doing right now, and that actually
right.
helped me to explore more of what my purpose is. I can't sit here
Mm.
and tell you, with full confidence exactly what my purpose is. And even if I knew, I'm not sure if I want to share
Mm.
that, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the experiences that I faced these last couple of years, and it wasn't even like the highlights. It wasn't even like, oh, I experienced these good things and that helped me to even like explore more of what my purpose may be. It was actually the
Yeah,
opposite, the low lights, whereas like
yeah.
I'm in
Yeah.
this particular field or I'm in this particular thing that I don't like doing. I don't want to be here. I've had a lot of different, interactions with different types of people in this particular field. And it's like, this is just not what I want for myself and not what I want for my own life. And just how
Mm.
people
Yeah.
have interacted with me in this particular field, I would even want that for others. So
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I want to try to approach my own life, not doing the things that they did to me, or not doing the things
Yeah.
that or not approaching the things that yeah, I guess let me phrase that. Not doing the same things that they did to me, and also realizing that what I'm currently in is just not for me.
Mm.
So going back to the question that you asked, Best, concerning purpose, at least for me, if I understood your question correctly, Best, at least for me, I don't fully know my purpose, but I would say that
Right.
the last couple of years have helped me to understand where my purpose lies. Now the question is like, how do
Yeah.
I go about that? Do I need to explore that more? Which I feel like it could be yes, it could be no. I feel like over time in life, you learn more about what your purpose is, or at least the things that
Yeah.
align with your purpose. But you also
Yeah.
could like sit down and be like, okay, here are the things I'm passionate about. Here are the things I don't like, and I'm gonna shoot for this. But I do think purpose. I think overarching purpose is like it's the overarching purpose in my opinion. I think is constant, but I do think there's certain aspects of that purpose that are malleable. At least if you look
Mm.
at it from a what is a purpose that God has given me perspective. If
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
if it's more so of like I'm defining my own purpose, then of course that entire thing can be malleable. But
Yeah.
yeah, what are your thoughts? And if that
Yeah.
was the question that you did ask, let me know. But if not, then
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, no, yeah, yeah, that was pretty spot on. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and I think another aspect of purpose is like, in my opinion, it's like I don't always think that is necessarily a case where obviously we have like an overarching purpose, right? We obviously ultimately is glorifying God, doing God's work, right? But I do believe like there are within certain phases, there are certain things to focus on, right? I think there are certain reasons why God puts us in the phases or in the stages or in the stages that we're supposed to be in,
yeah,
right? I think there is a reason for that, and I think it's important to understand what is the purpose for this, right? Whether those of us like myself who are getting married, right? Those of us who might not be getting married, or those people who are single or married or engaged relationship or what have you, right? Or even anything outside of just romantic relationship related,
mm-hmm.
right? There there's a reason why people are in certain phase that they're in,
Yeah.
right? And I think within those, this is just what I believe. I think within those phases, there are purposes within those phases, right? There's a purpose why somebody might be called to this or phase. I'll give you an example. We look at like and going back to the scripture, the story of Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
right? When Joseph was sold by his brothers, right? Eventually sent to prison, right? For after he was accused of wanting to sleep with the king's wife.
Mm-hmm.
He was in prison for that period, right? From like I would imagine, like if I was put in prison for being falsely accused of something, I'll be like, what's happening? Why am I here, right? But clearly there is a reason and why he was there,
Mm-hmm.
and a big part of it stemmed from the gift that God gave,
Yeah.
right? So I think one thing I'm curious is how does our gifts and what we're good at, how does that help us help give us a better understanding of our purpose, in your opinion?
That's a good question. Um, I will give my current answer, which is like subject to change, and also it is just
Yeah,
I it's just my answer, it's an opinion, I guess. But
yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, I would say that like I guess I'll use an example, right? Like as you're going
yeah,
through life. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna use I'm gonna use this example. So
yeah,
there is like King Josiah, right? And from the Bible, like
yeah,
he wanted to be like an active reformer. He saw that's how the people of Israel were living. There was a lot of idolatry. There's a lot going on. Idolatry. There's a lot of
yeah,
just sacrificial things that happen nowadays. Best believe, but there's a lot of things happening back in that period. And because King Josiah was a reformer, someone who cared about the people's posture and the people's well-being, something that he did was that he actually went across the land when he was king and like tore down all the idols, tore down all these things, and really encouraged and pushed people to come back to God. So to answer your question,
mm,
something that he was passionate about is the people. Like he was seeing that the people were straying away from the blessings and the goodness and the abundance of God and the character of who God is. I mean,
mm,
even if you take away the blessings and the abundance of God, the character of God, that's something that Josiah really valued and cherished and really wanted the people to see. So because of that passion within him, he wanted other
mm,
because of that passion within him, he went about to tear down all those idols so they can bring people back to God. There is that aspect of it where like something, or I guess the way I'm thinking about it is, as I mentioned previously, like there are things in life that could happen that are like, for lack of better words, good, that helps you to determine your
yeah, yeah,
purpose. Like let's say you have an interest in playing piano, like something that you're just passionate about as a kid,
yeah,
and you play
yeah,
piano for pretty much just years and years and years and years and years, and then an opportunity comes up and you learn that like, oh, you know what, like what I was called to do was to play like the most beautiful music for this this region, or for this demographic, or for the whole world, whatever
mm,
the case is. There's also the other side where like you mentioned, best, Joseph, his brothers, sold him. That's not something that
mm,
you would celebrate and be like, yes, now I know my purpose. Something terrible happened to him, and he also
mm,
got falsely accused, which is another terrible thing that happened to him. But in the midst of that, as he was serving God, you know, he took care of the people. He cared to the people in prison, and actually aligned with his character,
mm,
being able to lead, having the wisdom to lead. But those negative, situations or circumstances is what's actually shaped his purpose. Um,
mm.
so I just want to reiterate your question, Bess. Like the question is, is it possible, or like can your like your passions or like your hobbies, can that shape your purpose? Like that's the question that you're asking. I just want to understand that.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, pretty
Okay.
much. So like, how do your gifts in your interest or what you're good at shape what your purpose is? Because I think I look at, yeah, so Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
right, where that was the gift that God gave him, and that ultimately helped led to him eventually being king and saving Israel,
Joseph or
right, with the
Josiah?
famine. Joseph.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, Joseph. Yeah, Joseph.
Oh, you mean okay?
Right.
So Joseph in
So
Egypt, you mean? Sorry.
yeah, Egypt.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, Egypt.
yeah,
Sorry, Egypt. Yeah,
yeah. No,
sorry,
we're talking
Egypt.
about
Yeah,
Israel
yeah,
recently, so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, yeah, Joseph. Sorry,
Hmm.
Egypt. Um,
Yeah, no,
but
yeah.
yeah, no, I think it's thought about that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
that's my answer to your question. Like,
Mm,
I do think, at least from my experience, if you try to focus on what exactly is my purpose, I think you can get lost in the sauce. I think as you
I agree. Yeah.
explore your passions and like who you are, and even the things that like you just dislike from like a justice point of view or like a righteous point of view. Like for example, I don't like how this certain city or this certain nation is treating like the homeless here. That's something that really irritates me. I want to do something about that,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
that's like some examples of how your passions, your interests, or things that just drive or stir your soul or your spirits
Mm,
can push you towards your purpose. But what are your? It
mm.
sounds like you kind of agree with me for the most part. Like, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think like, and it goes back to what I was saying before. It's like we have talents for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason we have it. I think where I go back to scriptures where it says like there's those who have one talent, two, like a different amounts of talents, right? And some of them multiply the talents, but others bury it, right? And obviously, like in that context, it was talking about money, but like I don't think it's necessarily just money when we apply it today. Yeah, I don't believe it's necessarily just related to money.
Yeah.
I believe it also relates to other aspects of what, particularly our gifts,
Mm-hmm.
right, or what we're good at, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we he got like God, we have those for a reason, right? And then we could either multiply it, right? Multiply it and use it, right? Or bury it. It's like when you work out, right? If you're working out consistently, you're using the muscle. Your muscle's going. You'll be able to maintain your muscle and grow. You'll grow stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, right, over time you're gonna start losing muscle,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're gonna start losing muscle
Yeah.
and losing strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's just a underlying principle, an underlying principle when it comes to when we have certain things, gifts or whatnot, we have to keep using. We have to understand how we multiply it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
I wanna
yeah,
I wanna
yeah.
ask
So
you
yeah,
best.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Do you think that, or I guess, do you believe, that any or all passions or interests or things that stir you will be someone's purpose? Like, let's say, for example, someone has a let's say for example someone has a passion in like cooking, but also a passion in like I don't know aerodynamics, right?
Mm.
Do you think that like I guess let me see how I want to phrase this question. Um, okay, the best way for me to phrase this question is by first
Yeah.
stating my own opinion. So my own opinion is I don't think every passion or ability or talent leads an individual to their purpose, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay.
So
So I just
not
want to
all
yeah.
abilities leads to, or not all passions or talents leads to a certain to an individual's purpose. Like just because you're passionate about cooking does not mean that your purpose is to like become a chef, for example.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Like I think there's certain things that you could be good at, but it doesn't not I don't believe it necessarily means like that's like your purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like as you said, like if you're I don't know, if you're good at cooking, right? Then you're not going to be called like it doesn't necessarily mean you're called to be a gourmet chef and be Gordon Ramsay, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always a believer though that like you can, right? Like
Yeah.
you can like you if you put in the time and the work, right? Then you can do it. You can do it if you choose to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You choose to do that, right? But I think it's just how I kind of see things. It's like there is an underlying purpose I believe God has for us, and it's on us to seek God and just get close to Him to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But even if we have certain things and talents, there's also I do believe there is a choice on our part, right? This side, like if we want to embark further on this, and I'm just speaking specifically with like things we're good at, right?
Yeah.
I think I do believe we have that choice to decide if we want to embark further on being a chef or being a lawyer or being a mechanic or being an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
right? I do believe that God's given us that freedom to decide we want to go this direction, that direction, right? Yes, I do believe there is an underlying purpose. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe like specifically, especially with things that we're good at, it doesn't necessarily mean that if I don't know, like if you're a good at cook, you have to be a gourmet chef,
Mm-hmm.
right? Necessarily, right? But if you choose to be, then that's something, and it's something that you're interested and passionate about. You can take that approach,
Yeah. So that
right?
leads me
Yeah,
to like my follow up question. I know you had a question for
yeah,
me or a comments, but
yeah,
my follow up question is like because you touched up on it a little bit, but my
yeah.
follow up question is like, so what exactly could define someone's purpose? Like if they have all these interests or all these things that they're good at, what do you think could define like, or how could they yeah, how do I phrase this question? uh
Mm.
they have all these things they're good at or passionate about. How can they find their purpose, or how can one find their purpose? Like, what makes something purposeful, or what makes something like a purpose? I don't know if you understand my question, but I'm trying to I'm trying to
Mm.
I'm trying my best to like ask the question in my head, but I don't know how
Yeah,
to
yeah,
how to word it.
yeah. Like, what makes something a purpose? Like, how do we like not necessarily how to define a purpose, but what makes something a purpose? What doesn't make something a
Yeah.
purpose? Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. I'm not sure. That's something we get to think about for sure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um,
Because even when I think about
yeah.
like that question, my current partial answer is what is something that or like what is the thing that I can or the path that I can use to like serve people the best or to like impact people the most.
Yeah,
At least that's
yeah,
kind of like how
yeah,
I think about it. But
yeah.
but
That
but I don't know. I'm still like trying to approach my own solid solution.
okay,
But go ahead.
okay. Yeah, I like what you actually mentioned. I think there could be a lot of aspects to it. I think one thing, and also I'm just gonna go back to the scriptural lens, is like we're ultimately called to love others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like what the two key commandments are love God with our heart, soul, and mind, and love our neighbor as we love ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're also called to serve one another and serve those around us, right? So I guess one key aspect of a purpose is how can we use what's within us to serve others,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to give the love to others,
Yeah.
right? Because I something I've been kind of wrestling with is like it's good obviously to learn different skills, learn different knowledge and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the gifts, right? Everything God has like God has instilled within us. I think that's why like there's a topic of just of stewardship,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of stewardship where God's given us talents and it's on us to multiply it. And I think the reason why I mentioned the talent aspect is a lot of the talents and the gifts and the skills God's already instilled it in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's on us to bring that out and multiply that and steward that to best serve and love others.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe is a big component of purpose. And I think with the talent situation, I think people can have be good at one thing and be good at multiple things, and they can use all those things to serve his purpose. Right? You look at people who are big, like who are entrepreneurs, for example, who usually do multiple things, but it doesn't make them better than somebody who has one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think what's important is are you taking what is within you, and how are you stewarding that? How are you multiplying that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I do
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
ask another question, but I know you had like a
okay.
question or comments for me. So.
Yeah. No. I guess. Again, I guess the other this one I can hold off for now.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to actually go back to. I know you mentioned something a while back of like when you ask a kid, when you want to be when you're older.
Yeah.
Kid will say police officer, firefighter, doctor, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um. Now I'm kind of wondering, and I want to hear your take on this. As a child, we have these ideas or things we want to be. Do you think that is related to our purpose, right? Because if you think about it, as children, we
Mm-hmm.
say we want to be astronauts, we want to save the world, want to do all these things. But I think as we get older, we're kind of taught to be quote unquote realistic,
Mm-hmm.
right? To conform. And I
Mm-hmm.
think as we conform over time, right? I think that's what the scriptures it says, and I'm paraphrasing a
Do
bit, that we
not
should
conform
be
to the
like
patterns of the
children.
world. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I said to be like children,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and we have as children we have this abundant like a abundance faith in
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
faith that we can do anything,
Yeah.
right? But as we get older, we get more quote unquote realistic, and we that's why I say sometimes people get into these jobs or vocations that they're not really interested in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm curious, how does that, like when we're children, how much is that connected to what our purpose is, and how and when we kind of hear messages over time, how does that impact us living by our purpose as we get older?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, to be honest, and I really
Yeah.
hope that like any like young individuals that are listening to this like can gain something from this, hopefully. But I want to answer in like twofold. So number one is I am a firm believer that I mean, yes, like I do believe that we should be quote unquote realistic. Like look at our current situation and actually see how we can go about that. I agree and support that. But one thing that
Mm,
I think is an absolute crime to humanity is encouraging or pushing others to, for lack of better words, conform to like the standards of society, whatever the case is, because
mm,
it is like the right thing to do or is comfortable or is realistic, quote unquote.
mm,
I think if you are a dreamer or not a dreamer, if you're a dreamer slash believer, if there's something you want to pursue and there is an avenue to pursue because not everyone has the avenue or the opportunity to pursue what they want to pursue. But like if there's something you want to pursue and giving is not like a evil thing or like a terrible thing, strive for that. I still believe you should be realistic with like your current circumstances and your situations. But if there's something you want to pursue, you should strive for that. I think it's a crime when people are like, oh, you should do this, you should do that because it's
yeah.
how the world is. Like, nah, don't tell me that. Don't tell anyone that
Yeah,
either.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and then to more directly answer your question about like the how much is that tied to purpose for like kids, I think there's definitely a connection, but not in the way that one might assume. And what I mean by the connection is, I think it's important to ask, like for example, like the kids like that question, but I think it's crucial to follow up with like let's say for example I'm talking to my own kids, right? And I'm like, hey, what do you want to be what do you want to be when you grow up? And they tell me X A B C. What I would do, what I think is so important to do, is to expose them to as many things as possible. Because
That's key.
if
That's key.
let's say they want to be an astronaut, which like they might still end up being an astronaut, but like if they get to experience different things, they can actually determine like, okay, what are my interests? What do I like to do? What do I not like to
Mm,
do? Do I want to be an
mm,
astronaut because I want to be an astronaut, or because
yeah,
society
yeah.
said I should be an astronaut? Like, or because
Mm,
family and friends think I should be an astronaut? Like, so to more directly answer your question best, I do think there is a relationship, with purpose and like, hey, like what do you want to be when you grow up, but not in the sense of like, oh, because you want to be a police officer when you grow up, that is your purpose. I think it's more so of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, that's interesting. Let's, you should try exploring as many avenues as you can, and then that over time will shape, that kid's idea on what their purpose is or isn't.
mm,
That's what I think.
mm. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And I think a big part of it as well is when we kind of see our kids say, "Oh, we want to do this and that, and that." I like what you said, like exposing them to like different things, but even like to that thing as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to be astronaut, exposing them to that,
Yeah.
right? And letting them know like you can do anything you choose to do if you choose to do, right? Obviously, assuming it's legal and it aligns with the laws of the land, the laws of the Most High,
Yeah.
right? But you can do that, you know. Um, you just have to know they put in like obviously have faith, trust in God, and put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
You put in the work to become an astronaut or aircraft mechanic or anything of that nature,
Yeah.
right? It is exposing them to that, right? Because I mean, obviously our kids have Kids do have passions, right? Kids do have interests. Things excite them, and just kind of it's nice to like they say train up a child. It's a train up a child in the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think ultimately it's training them up, to strive and work hard and to take the action steps of achieving their goals and their dreams, right? So I now it's like even when you look at like today, and it's much interesting. A lot of like these principles that we hear were rooted in the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Says the word like to have walk by faith, not by sight, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot. I've heard the term that you hear a lot is like, for example, like somebody like a celebrity or a musician or an athlete who is an elite at their craft or their sport or their music or whatnot. They're often perceived viewed as quote unquote
Mm-hmm.
delusional confidence, quote unquote,
Yeah.
right? And you look at like maybe people like elite, top level athletes, like such as like a Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant was right.
Yeah.
Now you can look at like Kanye West, right? Regardless of like what we might see like in some of his views, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just a lot of time you hear these things that they have like a quote delusional confidence, right? And
Yeah.
I think
They
a
don't
lot of it
believe
comes
in
to
don't or
yeah,
can't. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
exactly. No, no, exactly, exactly. And not to say that all of it is necessarily rooted in like what their confidence is biblical
Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
right? But I think there is a truth in a sense of like having that confidence and belief that okay, you can achieve this, right? What makes it stronger is when it's rooted in Christ,
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
right? And I think that's what makes it even stronger. And I think it's so important. Obviously, I've never been a parent yet, but I will be a parent soon, God, by the grace of God.
Amen.
And we will all be parents soon by the grace of God. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's instilling in your kids very early
Yeah.
that right. I think that's such a big way to helpful for them to be purposeful and to understand their purpose and to live by their purpose.
Yeah. I also think there's an underlying like concept behind like that question, and like what I mean by that is I don't even necessarily think it's the what that is important, but it's more
Right,
so of
right.
like the intention behind it, I guess. So like for example,
Mm,
let's say a kid's like, oh, I want to be a police officer. Is it that they want to be a police officer, or they want to be able to protect people? Or they want to,
mm,
they believe in justice, for example. So I think by
mm,
exposing all these different things, um, like by exposing all these different things and exploring all these different avenues, I think what you do, yes, is important, but I think the intention behind it is like what purpose really is. Like I won't necessarily say like, oh, my purpose, like let's say for example my personal purpose was to become an astronaut, right? I won't necessarily say
mm,
like, oh, my purpose is to be an astronaut. It could be like my purpose is to, I mean, let me use a different example rather.
yeah,
um Let me use a different example. Let's say like
yeah.
I wouldn't say that my purpose is to be a chef, but maybe my purpose is that I love the like the satisfaction that my cooking brings to people. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I do think that purpose is not necessarily like a what are you doing, but more so of like what's
Yeah.
the intention behind that.
Mm.
What are your
I
what's your
like
take
that.
what's your take
I
on that?
like that. I like that. So like not necessarily what you're doing, right? I think sometimes when we think of purpose, it could be they see like you're changing the world or you're like you're building these things like you're Elon Musk
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, right? And I don't think it necessarily has to be that. It doesn't necessarily mean what they're doing is bigger than what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even in something like, for example, serving the community, your local community,
Mm-hmm.
right? Serving at your local church, just going by your street and preaching the word, or it could just be going by your street and just loving people. And I think another thing we have to think about is when we think about talent and gifts, it doesn't always have to be like you're a good cook or a basketball player or a coder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think gift could also be like, I know it talks about the scriptures too, right? Just like um, the fruits,
Yeah.
like how like love, hope,
Mm-hmm.
prayer, speaking in tongues, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all these things, right? Like gifts that spiritual gifts in particular
Yeah.
that people might have, and people can use that for God's kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to serve God and to serve others.
Yeah.
So there has to be this grand thing. It's like having that thing, right, and knowing how to multiply that, knowing how to steward that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
ultimately purpose should be for people, but ideally through God. That's what I believe.
Mm, for people and through God. Yeah,
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 for
I
people and
like that.
ideally through God. Yeah, because
Yeah, I like that.
if the purpose is just like for self, which like I wanna, if I remember my question, I wanna ask you a question later. But if the purpose is for self, then like how is that really helping other people, right? It's like yeah, you might enjoy what the case is, but like how does that actually help other people? And if it's through God, then like you definitely know it's that it's for other people because you could be like, oh, I'm doing this for people, but maybe like you have hidden agendas or hidden intentions, or maybe you just don't even know that it's actually not for people. But if you're doing it like if you're doing it with God, then you know for sure that it's for people because God cares about the people.
Mm,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I also I guess want to tie into just ultimately our main theme. Why do we like how can we connect knowing our purpose to um our calling as men?
hmm
What's your take on that?
I think I'll need a little bit more time to answer
Okay.
that question. But like, do you have any current
Okay.
thoughts on that or current opinions on that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, no worries. I mean, at the top of my head, for me, like, I think it's like, and again, I think it's not to say that purpose is just for men, right? Men
Mm.
and women have purpose, right?
Yeah.
I think one thing particularly it's important for men because ultimately that's what helps with leadership too, right? I'm actually reading a couple of books on leadership. Shout out to John Maxwell,
hmm
great author.
I think
And
I
I
might have
know
heard of
that
John Maxwell.
Yeah, you
I
might
think I
have heard.
probably heard about him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty well known in like Christian space when it comes to just topics regarding leadership and communication and
hmm
whatnot. And I think a big part of being a leader, right? And I think it's whether it's in business, work, or whatnot, is having that vision, having
hmm
that purpose, right? Because it's like I compare it's like you're driving a car, right? You're somebody driving a car. You want to know the direction that you're going to,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't know the direction that you're going to, then you're just going in circles. But if you know the direction that you're going to, right, you could have other people by you, right, the passenger seat and back seat, just like particularly the passenger seat, maybe helping you with that,
hmm
but you're the one driving the car because you have to have that direction,
Yeah.
right? So I think a big part of the purpose is not just purpose for ourselves but purpose for our community, purpose for our families,
hmm
purpose for our loved ones,
Yeah.
right? And I believe it's through that purpose we have that sense of direction. We're able to lead those around us and lead our families.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then I guess yeah. To answer your question, I mean, I think you, I think you answered it like honestly like
Right.
how I would answer it as well. I'm not sure if there's more I would add to that, but I do agree that
Mm,
at least because of the platform that we have, like building men and men striving to be like the men that is defined in the Bible and the Word of God. I do believe that again, not to say, I'm gonna speak strictly for men, so no one
yeah,
should
yeah,
misinterpret what I'm saying. This is strictly for men, but I think it's very important that men, I think it's very important for men to be incredibly purposeful.
yeah,
That does not imply the inverse, all right? But I'm just saying that it's
yeah,
very
yeah,
important that men should be purposeful. Even just going back to the Bible, like as men, we are called to lead. Like the example that is given is Christ in the church, Jesus in the church. He's the head of this dynamic,
Mhm.
and he called us men to be the head of our families, which is
Yeah,
when we have our own family and all that. So being purposeful is incredibly important because, as you said, like the example you gave, best is a good example, like driving, right? If you're
mm,
driving in
mm,
circles, whoever's in that car is not going anywhere, and
yeah,
that's and including yourself, including yourself.
yeah,
But if you're going in a certain direction, even if you don't exactly know where the end destination might take you. Obviously, like
Yeah.
you will still plan and still have an idea of what
Yeah.
that end looks like, quote unquote. But as long as you're going in a certain direction and ideally in a right direction,
Yeah.
that is key as a man because as you have your own family, you have your own wife and your own kids. That is, I mean, that's a lot of responsibility, man. Like, I mean, already as a single individual, you already have a lot of responsibility, whether male or female. But as a man who has, like, I'm not married yet or have
Yeah.
kids, but if you have a wife and you have kids, that's a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, at that point, you can't actually even think strictly for just yourself. So, even if
Yeah.
even if your purpose quote unquote was initially selfish, if you have a wife and kids, you can't be selfish at that point. You have to look
Yeah.
out for your wife and your kids. um yeah, I hopefully I answered your question there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the part of it where it's like having a purpose, right? It's not just for us, but even it's what helps our community,
Hmm.
right? It helps our community to it helps those around us, you know? I think that's a big part of our purpose is like the reason why we have these talents or gifts or interests is to shape who we are and to shape not just who we are, but to shape rather those around us,
Hmm.
right? Those around us, our community, our loved ones, and what have you.
Yeah, I wanna ask you a question, best, like,
Yeah,
and I want to try to word this as best I can. Do you think that it is wrong to, because like we spoke about multiplying your talents and serving the community, do you think it's wrong to pursue something that you are genuinely interested in, and like as you pursue like as like yeah, is it wrong to pursue this particular thing but not be concerned about how that could build others up? Like, let me give you an example, right? Let's
mm,
say we'll go back to like the cooking example, right?
yeah,
Let's say I'm in the kitchen, I'm whipping it up every single day. I love to cook. I'm multiplying my talents, I'm multiplying my gifts, I'm getting better and better every day. But would you say that it's wrong for me to not, like, teach or show other people how to, make certain foods? Or even is it even wrong for me to not even like put that out in the world? Like at that point it's
mm.
selfish because it's serving myself. But like, is it wrong to do that? And like your answer may change like over time, but like, what would you say?
I think how I see it is like I think it depends. I think one thing you want to ask yourself, again, this is my view,
Mm-hmm.
right? People have another opinion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I think it largely depends on like what's your intention,
Yeah.
right? Is your intention rooted in something pure, or is the intention rooted in something? I don't want to say like I don't want to say sinful necessarily, but something that is, I guess, carnal. I guess carnal is the right word,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how is that affecting you or somebody else, right? And I think that would determine that because I mean it's not. I don't know if it necessarily means you have to like put it out there,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it's just something that I guess like a stress relief for some people, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. I think I would say it largely depends on like what is the purpose, right? Because if you're doing something more so out of greed, then that begs the question because now it's like it's something that is more carnal,
Okay.
right? But if it's something that you're doing, I don't know, I guess out of enjoyment, out of love, out of helping other people or anything of that nature, then I think that's what it's not. I don't believe it's as problematic.
Okay.
So I think it largely depends on like what is your underlying intention and your lack your no pun intended purpose for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
No, I like how
yeah,
you answered that question
yeah,
because like that's something that I'm currently, like, I don't know if I have like a solid answer
yeah,
yet. Because like
yeah,
on one hand, and like I want to hear your thoughts on this because like I might just be misunderstanding or misinterpreting this part of
right,
scripture. But on one
yeah,
hand, it's like multiply your talent so that it could like benefit others. But on the other hand, like if there's a certain hobby that you like doing, do you need to like put that out in the world for people to like learn from or to like gain from? So that's
mm,
something that like I just personally just haven't really come to like a certain answer to. I see the
yeah,
benefits of both, or I see like the points of both sides, but I
mm-hmm,
don't know how to reconcile them both if they can be reconciled.
I see. I see. That is a good question. And I don't. Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily means you have to like put it out in everything you like. You have to put it out in the world necessarily. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it necessarily means that. But again, I think I'll ultimately say like, what is the underlying reason? Like, if you're just doing it because you just enjoy it and it's like a stress relief, then I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you're wrong for not putting it out there,
Yeah.
right? But like, if it's something where it's like, okay, you want to make money out of this, you gotta make the dough out of it, right? Then it's like, okay, and I don't think, and I'm not to say it's wrong to like, obviously like you want to make profit out of it. I think that's great. Like, I don't think that's inherently wrong, right?
Yeah.
I think you have a problem when we get too consumed by it, right? And like I'll give you an example. I guess for me, and I think I just talking about this, I think I've realized for myself, I'm trying to get like I enjoy investing, right? I enjoy investing in stocks and the ETFs and things of that nature,
Yeah.
and I want to try to get. I've been investing for a couple of years, and I think I have a good grasp of it. But now I want to get more into trading, like swing trading,
Yeah.
right? And obviously, it's a good strategy, right? I kind of want to understand the strategy and ways to like multiply my finances,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think I have to make sure it's like I don't want to get too consumed with. It's interesting. It's like a psychology behind it, right? Where it's like you don't want to act from impulse, right? You want to be too reactive. You don't want to be too greedy
Yeah.
because there's a temptation where it's like, okay, you met your target, you entered the market, you met your price target, but there's a temptation to keep it. You see the market still going, you got to keep going, keep going, keep going, right? And that's when you start getting greedy. Like, okay, I can make more. Keep
Mm-hmm.
going, keep going. And but sometimes that bites you in the butt, and then you lose most of it because eventually the market's gonna dip, and then you lose most of it. It's like, oh no,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's an example where it's like I think it's good to learn that, understand that, especially like if you want to like you understand the importance of building wealth and just helping other people do that, and that's something
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to understand for yourself, for your family. But you also want to make sure like you don't get too occupied by it and you're focusing on just like you don't let the greed consume you, right? And then it becomes or else it's gonna just turn into gambling, glorified gambling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
No, I like that answer.
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think we touched up on a lot. I don't know. Do you have anything else? Any other questions? Anything else you want to touch up on, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I mean, my final thing, which is actually not on this topic, make sure
Yeah.
you drink your water, stay hydrated, all right?
Yes.
Water break.
Yes.
We're gonna sit here for the next
Yes.
10 minutes. If you don't drink your water, go drink water right now,
Yes.
all
Drink
right?
water. We should have a water
Yeah,
break.
exactly, water break. But yeah, no, other than that, I don't really have any comments. I think it was a great, insightful
Yeah.
conversation. Of course, if there's any comments that y'all may have, like drop them
Yeah.
down below. Don't be shy. We're not gonna dox you. We don't even know your IP address. Just drop them in the comments. Like, let us know your thoughts. Any questions you may have, let us know or like put the questions in the comment down below, or even just your take. Like if there's certain experiences that you've gone through and you have like a certain perspective, drop that in the comments
Mhm.
as well. And I know we're
Yeah.
like about to wrap up, but please like the video. If you genuinely just did not like the video, share, like, drop in the comments why you didn't like what we discussed. But please, hit that like button and subscribe as well. We're trying to grow our platform. We want to,
Yeah.
bring as much engagement as possible. So please
Yeah.
subscribe, please like the video, and we appreciate all of our subscribers so far, all our views so far, and all our likes so far. Anything else from you, Best?
No, I think we touch up on everything. Yeah, so next week we will get to our next pillar of kingship.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we'll keep you all posted. And thanks again. As Jeremiah said, you have any questions, in like any comment, anything you want to touch up on, you know, put it in the comment section below. Like and subscribe. And yeah, I think that's everything. I think it's everything. Thank you all for
Mm-hmm.
joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining
And
us.
yeah, yeah, and we'll see you all next time. Take care, guys.
All right, take
Peace.
care and have a blessed new year, everybody.
Happy New Year, guys. Take care.